Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, classmates. I am Geisha Tiffany Mingo, the reporter of Group A, and our researcher is Hinier Flores, and our visual designer is Hannah May Suarez. Without further ado, let me start. And our topic for today is about Renaissance, and I will be tackling first about the art history. So the Renaissance refers to the era in Europe from the 14th to the 16th century in which a new style in painting, sculpture, and architecture developed after the Gothic. It is derived from the French word Renaissance and the Italian word Rinascita, both meaning rebirth. The Renaissance was a period when scholars and artists began to investigate what they believed to be a revival of classical learning, literature, and art. For example, the followers of the 14th century author Petrarch began to study texts from Greece and Rome for their moral content and literary style. Having its roots in the medieval university, this study called humanism centered on rhetoric, literature, history, and moral philosophy. So the Italian Renaissance re-established Western art according to the principles of classical Greek art, especially Greek sculpture and painting, which provided much for the basis of the Grand Tour. Next is the art movement. Renaissance art was driven by a new notion of humanism, a philosophy which had been the foundation for many of the achievements, and one of it is democracy of pagan ancient Greece. Humanism downplayed religious and secular dogma and instead attached the greatest importance to the dignity and worth of the individual. In the visual arts, humanism stood for many reasons. First is the emergence of the individual figure in place of stereotyped or symbolic figures. Next is for the greater realism and consequent attention to detail as reflected in the development of linear perspective and the increasing realism of human faces and bodies. So this new approach helps to explain why classical sculpture was so revered and why Byzantine art fell out of fashion. So when we say of Byzantine art, it comprises that states that inherited culturally from the empire. Third is it is an emphasis on and promotion of virtuous action. It is an approach echoed by the leading art theorist of the Renaissance, Leon Battista Alberti, when he declared that happiness cannot be gained without good works and just and righteous deeds. Renaissance artists placed emphasis on certain modes of composition, aesthetic effect, and self-conception. In addition to the renewed interest in antiquity, this included the formulation of perspective, naturalistic depiction of the human figure and landscape, emphasis on proportional architectural forms, and the growing self-consciousness of artists as prominent creative individuals and intellectuals. So those were for the art history and art movement. Now, let's keep going for the chosen artist that we have listed and why did we choose that artist. So we have here our top 10 artists. So we have Filippo Brunelleschi, Donatello, Jan van Eyck, Sandro Botticelli, Hieronymus Bosch, Matthias Grünwald, Albert Dürer, and lastly is Leonardo da Vinci. For the background of the artist of Leonardo da Vinci, Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci is his real name and complete name, is described as one of the most gifted and inventive men in history and was born in 1452 in a village near the town of Vinci, Tuscany. So, to all of you who doesn't know, an illegitimate son of Piero Profossiono di Antonio da Vinci and a Florentine notary and Caterina, a peasant girl, he was brought up on the family estate in Anciano by his paternal grandfather. So that's the family background of Leonardo da Vinci. His father also married a 16-year-old girl, Albiera, with whom Leonardo was close, but who died young. Leonardo was the eldest of 12 siblings, and his family never treated his illegitimacy as a stigma. Because we all know that nowadays, once you are illegitimate, you will be treated poorly and unfairly. But with the case of Leonardo, it was not a hindrance for him to create a strong relationship and bond with his family. So at the age of 14, Leonardo moved to Florence to begin an apprenticeship with Andrea del Verrocchio, an artist who had been a student of early Renaissance master Donatello. So under Verrocchio's mentorship, Leonardo's early genius was extensively nurtured. In addition to drawing, painting, and sculpture, he developed an interest in anatomy, architecture, chemistry, mathematics, and engineering. This education helped hone a profound imagination which later led to his planning of marvelous inventions, evidenced by his many of drawings of military weapons and mechanical contraptions, which contribute to his reputation as a genius today. In 1472, after 6 years of apprenticeship, Leonardo became a member of the Guild of St. Luke. It is a Florentine group of artists and medical doctors. Although his father set him up with a studio of his own, Leonardo continued to work in Verrocchio's studio as an assistant for the next 4 years. In 1476, Leonardo was accused of sodomy. So when we say of sodomy, it is a buggery, or is generally anal or oral sex between people, or sexual activity between a person and a human animal. But it may also mean any non-procreative sexual activity with other 3 men, but was acquitted later on because of lack of corroborative evidence, which is often attributed to the fact that his friends came from powerful families. So homosexuality was at the time illegal and punishable not only by imprisonment, public humiliation, but also death. Perhaps because of the chastisement following such a traumatic event, he kept a low profile over the next few years, of which is not much have known. Leonardo died on May 2, 1519, at Clos-Loche, naming his companion Francisco Melzi as principal beneficiary of his artistic and scientific estates. So that is all about Leonardo da Vinci. As a Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, one of the most famous painting that has been created in the field of artwork. And we have here our summary of interpretation and the reason why we chose Mona Lisa as the artwork to be presented in the class. So despite being the world's famous painting, a profound skepticism still surrounds the woman with the enigmatic smile. Fascinating, intriguing, and mysterious. The Mona Lisa is still discussed animatedly today, offering a vital insight into the Renaissance period. She is known and recognized worldwide, and admirers travel from every corner of the globe to see her. Thousands of eager eyes peruse the painting daily, observing da Vinci's well-guarded masterpiece. Mona Lisa, also known as La Gioconda, is the wife of Francisco del Gioconda, and this painting is painted as oil on wood. Vinci's famous sfumato technique Sfumato rather means soft in Italian, which accurately describes the delicate, hazy, and slightly blurred effect of Da Vinci's painting. Subjects are coated in a cloud of carefully blended color and subtle gradations. It is a result of this meticulous work, the surface of the painting shows absolutely no trace of brush strokes. Despite its epic age, the Mona Lisa is rather well preserved. Moreover, it is a visual representation of the idea of happiness suggested by the word Gioconda in Italian. Leonardo made this notion of happiness the central motif of the portrait, and it is this notion that makes the work such an ideal. Beside her is a vast landscape. It recedes to icy mountains, and winding paths and distant bridge give only the slightest indications of human presence. The sensuous curves of the woman's hair and clothing, created through sfumato, are echoed in the undulating imaginary valleys and rivers behind her. The blurred outlines, graceful figure, dramatic contrast of light and dark, and overall feeling of calm are characteristic of the Vinci style. So, due to the expressive synthesis that Da Vinci achieved between theater and landscape, it is arguable whether Mona Lisa should be considered as a traditional portrait, for it represents an ideal rather than a real woman. So, the sense of overall harmony achieved in the painting, especially apparent in the sitter's faint smiles, reflect the idea of a link connecting humanity and nature. Therefore, in the Renaissance, which brought together all of human activities, art meant science, art meant truth to life, Leonardo da Vinci was a great figure because he embodied the epic endeavor of Italian art to conquer universal values. He who combined within himself the fluctuating sensitivity of the artist and the deep wisdom of the scientist, he, the poet, and the master. So, we have chosen Leonardo da Vinci as an artist because of those reasons made made Mona Lisa one of the most famous artwork in history, not just in Renaissance. And therefore, we have chosen Leonardo da Vinci and his artwork Mona Lisa. And now let's move on to, of course, our acknowledgement. We would like to express our heartfelt gratitude and warm acknowledgement for the mentioned personalities who helped us complete our report. First of all, we would like to thank God for His divine providence and for the strength and knowledge He has poured upon us. To our friends who constantly cheered us up to accomplish our task, an ending thank you. To our beloved parents who unfailingly provides us our necessities which enable us to make this report, we are grateful for the massive contributions. And to all the people who we failed to mention but contributed to our accomplishment, may God bless your pure hearts and know that we genuinely appreciate every single thing. So, on behalf of my teammates, Samir Flores and Hannah May Suarez, we would like to thank you all and may you have learned a lot of things from this report. Thank you.